Let's face it, the setups are still the same. What you see on an intraday chart, if it's a good setup, okay, you take that setup and put it into a daily chart, it's still the same in my opinion. And the way I trade, that's what I look for. And a lot of people think that you cannot make money swing trading. And if you find the right setups, you can do very well. Even if you want to swing trade for a couple of days, be in and out quick, but it can be very profitable.
It's kind of all the same. If you're looking at charts and you're looking at, money flow and data and setups, then it shouldn't really matter if you're looking at a 5-minute chart or a daily chart or a weekly chart. It's the same kind of concept. So even if you're someone who is day trading and successful at it, you might want to look at it and say, well, what if I did the same thing I'm doing here and then apply it over to a longer term time frame and kind of the trades you can take from there.
And I try not to act on a trade until my price alerts go off. And I think so many traders would trade better if they just did not take positions on their heart and what they think is going to happen and just set a price alert.
Okay, everyone, welcome back to the channel. And for another interview, we're doing the Meet Trade Ideas series where we're going through trade ideas and all of the wonderful people we have here to help you guys, learn a little bit about us. We are a tech company. We sell technology and we are very proud of our tech. But one of the things that I think is super cool is the people we have behind the tech and their passion for the market. So today I have Andy, and Andy you probably have heard a lot of if you've been following the channel for any length of time. He's another OG of not just trading, but of trade ideas. He's been around for a very long time. He's been trading with Steve, who was our first interview, for many, many years, and brings a unique kind of aspect and a unique view of the market that I think some of you guys may like. So without further ado, let's switch it over to you, Andy, and introduce yourself for a minute or two here.
Oh, thanks, Michael. Yeah, my name is Andy Lindloff, and like Michael said, I've been trading pretty much started with Steve back in the late '90s, and so uh, basically hardcore day trading for about 15, 16 years, and then I started getting too old for that, and then moved on to swing trading, and that's pretty much what I've been doing the last call it 15 or 16 years since then. So definitely. Uh, Experienced when it comes to trading, and little more about my background. I also started a company with Steve called Today Trader, where we did desktop sharing, and we would help other traders profit in the marketplace by letting them allow my to watch my screen as I traded. They could see my blotter and everything. So we did that for about oh gosh, it seems like maybe about 3 or 4 years, and then we also got hired on by Ditto Trade. This was an online startup that allowed people to basically take the same trades we were. And this was a swing trading format. It's a great concept. They could basically get the same price we would. They would go out and do a block trade, and they would get the same trades, the same entries, and the same exits. So it was a way for somebody to basically just hook on to a good trader and follow whatever they're doing without actually having to punch any keys. We did that for about 3.5 years, and we outperformed, I think, the S&P by about, it was 37%. So it was very successful, but they just didn't have any marketing behind them and could not get things going. And then I also got hired out by a trading group out of China that I flew over for a couple of years. I would fly over there for 1 week every month. It was tiresome, and and I would help. There was a group of traders, about 450 traders, and I would basically sit down with them and teach them day trading strategies that I have used over the years to profit in the marketplace. And that was a pretty interesting endeavor for sure. But since then, yeah, after a while, Steve and I were both one of the very first traders, the very first users of trade ideas. We actually started trading with Dan Merkin, the CEO, back in the late '90s, and so we decided, hey, let's go. Dan wanted us to come over and join him, and that's what we've done. And so here we are. We've been here now for about, gosh, 8 or 9 years. So it's been a good marriage and allows me to still swing trade and help others. And so that's pretty much my background.
That's awesome. There's a lot of unpack there, and the people who have seen Steve's interview, because Steve and Andy have been trading so far together, there's going to be a little bit of overlap in there. But I'm going to hit on some different things when it comes to trading style and all that. If you haven't seen that interview, make sure you go back on the channel and check that out as well. I'm going to be pulling lots of people from Trade Ideas with different backgrounds, different trading styles, some who may not even trade, but you might be interested to hear about their ideas behind developing trading software. So, a lot of unpack there. First of all, not to retread all of that same water, I'm very interested in your transition from day trading to swing trading, because I've been hearing that more and more when it comes to different traders that are coming into the market with trade ideas, and think that they're going to be in and out during a day, and then maybe that's not working for them and they want to focus a little bit more on the swing trading style. So can you talk a little bit about why, in more detail, why you made that transition, and if someone is looking to make that transition, any sort of a tip that you could give for them to make sure that they're taking what they've learned so far in day trading, even if they're not yet successful at it, and applying it to more swing trading time frame.
Yeah, yeah, very good question, Michael. What I found, well, first of all, let me start. When I started day trading, it was back in the late '90s, where there were a lot of inefficiencies in the market, and the day traders had the upper hand. You've heard of the So's Bandit, that
Hmm.
started back in the '90s, and so we were the fast ones. And then and then also stocks traded in what we call teenies, 1/6 of a price, which was a
Hmm.
single move, and you could basically make 25 cents just by a couple of price moves. And then they moved to decimalization. That made it more difficult. And then around 2007, 2008, I was scratching my head looking at the price action, watching these trade, the level two disappear. Anyway, it got really funky, and I said something's going on here. And about 2 months later, we heard of high frequency trading, and that's where you had the Citadels, the Goldman Sachses, and coming in doing these algos to basically micro scout for pennies, and it just made it really difficult, I think, on the day trader. So
Hmm.
I had to adjust my style then just to go for longer term time frames. When I
And
used to scout for maybe. Go
you're
ahead.
mentioning intraday, longer term time
Right.
frames, right? Saturday,
Exactly,
yeah.
intraday. So what may have been back in the day a 15 to 20-minute hold turned out to be a 2 to 3 hour hold, because you no longer could get in that battleground, and micro scout for 25, 30 cents. It just became so difficult with all the high
Hmm.
frequency traders in there. So I had to adapt and shoot for 50 cent to $1 moves over a longer
Yeah.
time frame. Yeah. So then at that point, things were getting more and more difficult. And don't get me wrong, there's still day traders that do very well, and I was still scratching out a living during the time. But uh, I got into some other endeavors, and I won't go there. And I told myself, you know what, this may be a good time to move to swing trading,
Hmm.
because let's face it, the setups are still the same. What you see on an intraday chart, if it's a good setup, okay, you take that setup and put it into a daily chart. It's still the same in my opinion. And the way I try trade, that's what I look for. I look for setups, and so I just took that concept and basically moved it over to the swing trading time frame. And boy, it's a lot less stressful. And a lot of people think that you cannot make money swing trading. And if you find the right setups, you can do very well. In it, even if you want to swing trade for a couple of days, be in and out quick, which is kind of what I do. But uh, it can be very profitable. And I think more people uh, that come in thinking they want to day trade should entertain the idea, of maybe swing trading, because um, I mean, yes, it's hard to have these incredible, if you're a good day trader, to have these incredible get days, swing trading, but it can be very profitable for sure.
Yeah, and I loved what you were talking about there, is when your life got a little busier and you were taking
Hmm.
on, some more external work, that's when you pushed in as well, because that's a lot of what I've been hearing as well. We know that the unemployment rate in the US is really low right now. So there's a lot of people out there and they're looking for either extra income or they want to learn and make a little bit of money while eventually transitioning over to full time. And I think swing trading would work out very well for them. Also, the fact that when you're day trading, you have to be laser focused on what you're doing because your size is a little bit increased and your time frame's a little bit increased. I think that makes a lot of sense as well. And I love that what you said there about how it's kind of all the same. If you're looking at charts and you're looking at money flow and data and setups, then it shouldn't really matter if you're looking at say a 5 minute chart or a daily chart or a weekly chart. It's the same kind of concept. So even if you're someone who is day trading and successful at it, you might want to look at and say, well, what if I did the same thing I'm doing here and then apply it over to a longer term time frame and kind of the trades you can take from there. So you mentioned that you were trading or you started at Trade Ideas early with Steve. And I remember, just like I mentioned with Steve, I was watching your guys' YouTube channel way, way back in the day before it was, cool to be on YouTube. And that's actually where I found Trade Ideas. So you want to talk just a little bit about how Trade Ideas has evolved from that point on, because I went through a video the other day of you guys years ago and it was crazy, like no charts, no whatever. So as your trading has adapted, how have you adapted the use of Trade Ideas and how have you seen Trade Ideas adapt the technology overall?
Oh yeah, absolutely, Michael. Back when we were day trading and Trade Ideas first came out, like I said, Steve and I were the one of the very first users. And back then, you basically had a it was an alert window with some configuration, nothing like they have now, where you can kind of configure, um, new high, new low, running up, running down. You had some volume parameters that you can put in there, relative volume, volume in the 5 minutes. So they did have quite a bit of filters that you can configure for momentum trading, and it worked great for me. I remember my first scan that I built was called Master Blaster, and it was looking for momentum trades that are doing incredible volume, breaking out
Mm-hmm.
of a 5-day high. So it was very effective. But then over the years, they've developed so much. And what I like about it for my swing trading, excuse me, is they have uh, these position and range filters, which I'm always telling all of our clients, pay attention to these because if you can imagine a chart in your head, you can build a scanner to find, that setup. And I've shared a lot of my scans, and I've gotten some incredible feedback from traders because I've developed these scans where I can find that sweet spot in a daily time frame to where a stock has the potential for a great move. And so that wasn't around when I first started. So that has developed, but because we just keep adding more and more alerts and more filters, and of course you mentioned the charts, the races.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, it's really developed over the years, and it has something for everybody. Doesn't matter if you're a day trader, a swing trader, or what strategies you want to put together. You can use our configurations and pretty much develop anything you want.
Yeah, that's great. Now we're talking strategies and all of that. And we talked a little bit about Steve about, he likes his 10 SMA and pullbacks to moving averages and things like that. And I should have prepped you on this, but I didn't. So we're going to do it live. So we're going to talk about some of your favorite setups, and then what you're going to do is you're going to give me a cloud link of a doc for people. So anyone who's watching this who is a Trade Ideas subscriber will be able to take what is your favorite setup or one of your favorite setups and watch that live. So can you describe a little bit what you're looking at that's different from Steve and or different from myself or some of the other people, and how you would trade it, and when that kind of setup would work better and when it wouldn't, and basically what is it that you look for? So you're sitting down at your computer and
Mhm.
you're saying, okay, I'm looking to take some trades today. What is it that you're going to first?
Okay. Yeah, very good question. What I like to do is, like I said, I use these position and range filters. And when I say that, the key ranges that I love are the 5-day, the 10-day, and the 20-day.
Okay.
And And what I did years ago was I found a stock that I traded really well. It was like one of my best trading stocks for the year because the setup just kept happening over and over. And I told myself, I said, "Well, you know what? I'm going to go back and look at this." And I used stocks like this. We won't get into it right now, but it's a feature that Trade Ideas has where you can put in a symbol and basically find all the filters that were satisfied at a certain time frame.
Yep.
So what I did is I started going in there and I created using filters, the 5 day, the 10 day, and the 20 day, and I could put minimum and maximums in those filters to basically create a wedge pattern, a bull flag, and there's about three of them that I like a lot. I will definitely share my best one called Poised. Uh, but what happens is because the way these filters are set up, it creates these patterns for you, and it just offers you every morning. I go in there and I see just these beautiful setups, and there'll be some incredible wedge patterns and some nice bull flags patterns. So that is what I use every morning. I'll get up and look at it for maybe 45 minutes to an hour and just find these setups. And then I'll put price alerts when they're breaking out of a 5 day high or breaking out of that wedge pattern. And that's pretty much that's my strategy each morning.
And that's perfect. That leads to right to what I was going to ask you next too. So what I'm getting from you, so Steve's a little bit more moving average heavy, a little bit more,
Mhm.
focused on those indicators. So you're a little bit more of a pattern trader, you would say. You look
Yes.
for, tightening price action, that type of thing. And it's funny, I like talking to you guys who aren't CMTs and haven't done the official studies, but right, you're from the streets and you're seeing the same thing where
Exactly.
it's in the CMT we're taught that there's two constants in price that we can really look at and study over and over again, and that's price trends, but volatility mean reverts, which essentially just means that if it's a period of high volatility, that's going to calm down at some point. And if it's getting really, really, really tight, that volatility is going to increase at some point. And it's our job to kind of guess the direction or to play with that volatility increase. So when Andy's talking about these patterns, he's basically saying, okay, I'm looking for something that is getting really, really, really tight because I know at some point soon there's going to be this explosion of volatility. And that's where I want to get involved. So you mentioned that you just go in, you place your price alerts. So we've gone from this is how you prep in the morning and the strategy you look for. When you're actually in the trading day itself, is that your main focus on the price alerts that you've already set up? Or are you watching scans intraday, or is it a little bit of both?
I will watch some scans intraday, maybe looking for some momentum, some breakout momentum. But typically, I will put price alerts in a lot of these setups I see each day, and I try not to act on a trade until my price alerts go off. And I think so many traders would trade better if they just did not take positions on their heart and on what they
Yeah.
think is going to happen and just set a price alert. And that works for the downside too. Maybe you want to find a stock that's moving back to a moving average. Put a
Mhm.
price alert in there. So yes, that's pretty much what I do. I mark these things up each morning as I'm going through them, and I wait. I sit back and I wait for those alerts to trigger. And if they do, I will definitely, I'm not going to say I definitely take the trade, but I will definitely consider, my options at that point.
And I love that because I couldn't agree more. And we do a lot of support and webinars and everything when it comes to trade ideas. And sometimes you see people's screens, and I think this is part of the fact that Trade Ideas has so much to offer people.
Mhm.
They feel like they need to always have that on the screen. So we've all seen the layout of the customer who has, 17 different alert windows and then a whole bunch of races and a whole bunch of heat maps and a whole bunch of charts and all of this. And it was funny that Steve says here, this is the couple things that I watch, and it's a fairly simple layout. And you're kind of saying the same thing, that all of the prep is done before the trading day even starts. And then you're just sitting and you're waiting for your price to, occur and the price to get there. And again, I couldn't agree with that more. Again, there's so many people who are out there saying, okay, I need to, be clicking through charts all day long, clicking through charts and then trying to make trades. But when that's happening, you're in more of a heightened emotional state and you're
Exactly.
you're ready to go and you're ready to pounce and you're ready to trade. I'm the same way where I want to get all of the work done. I call it when the lights are off, when there's nothing flashing in my face. And then I sit back and I say, okay, now let the market come to me. There might be a whole day where I sit there and I don't place a trade because none of my price alerts hit. And then there may be very active days where I have to look and evaluate a lot of things. But it starts from a neutral place. I'm chill, and everything's going from there. So I think that's a good tip for everybody.
Hmm.
To simplify things. It's one of those that
Sure.
trading can get very, very complicated. So now, when again we've gone through setup and then we've gone through entry, let's talk about stop losses, right? So is that set immediately? Do you use hard stop loss, mental stop losses? What is it that you do to manage the risk in the trade?
Yeah, good question. I think a lot of people use a stop loss based upon how much money they want to lose on the trade, which I think is not the correct way to go about it.
Hmm.
What you have to do is find a place technically on a chart, okay, where the stock would break down, whether you're using a moving average, whether you're using support,
Hmm.
resistance. Uh, Technically find where your stop's going to be, and then adjust your how much you want to place on the trade based upon that stop. So in other words, don't just go in saying, well, I want to make 10% on the upside and lose 3% on the downside. No, because that 3% may be a no man's land. It may not be a place where you want to stop out. So uh, that's the way I do it. I adjust according to where my stop is. I just adjust my how much I want to enter onto it in a trade.
Which makes sense. The way I've always thought about it is at what point does it invalidate my thesis, right? So if my thesis
Exactly.
is this is going to break out and continue, then what is the point where that breakout fails and I am either wrong or early, which is the same thing, and you've got to come back later. And then the last part about a trade, and this is what I'm always interested when I'm asking traders, because this to me I think is the hardest part of trading, is when you get out when you're right. It's very easy to me to
Yes.
say, look, this looks like this is going to break out here. I'm going to buy it here. I know I'm wrong if it breaks this price and I get out. But for me, I always struggle with, do I add more? Do I hold more? Do I take in parts? I don't think there is a right answer. So what I'm doing is I'm asking everybody, and I think I'm going to just like probably take a little bit from everyone that I talk to about it.
Right. And another thing I want to add too, Michael, is a lot of people ask me, "What's your stop? What's your target?" And I really don't like giving those out when you're looking at swing trades, because they can be so subjective to how much you're putting on a trade. Somebody may be entering a trade to hold for 3 days. Somebody may be entering a trade to hold for 3 months, or a year. So you know, it's it's like our old friend Sean. He used to have 20% stops because he was planning on getting in that stock and holding it for years.
Yep.
So
I've
they can be very subjective.
I've always thought that before you get back to it, and I always thought this was hilarious. I think JC says this is that 90% of fights between traders could be resolved if we all just put out our time frame beforehand. Because someone says, "Oh, this stock looks bearish," and then someone goes, "No, you're an idiot. It looks bullish." But
Yeah.
one's looking for the next 2 days, and one's looking for the next 2 months, and it's a different beast. So
Ex- Precisely. Yeah, exactly right.
yeah, so is it a profit on your, and we're talking about your specific style, is it a profit target right away? Is it feeling things as it goes? Is it and more advice for the new trader, right? Because both talking to
Right.
you and Steve, I know there's a lot of feel that goes on, and that just comes from sitting in the seat and watching hundreds of thousands of hours probably at this time of price action. If you were to give kind of advice to someone, is it a bit of both? Is it take some here and trail some? Is it, and
Yeah.
then what percentage do you take off when it's time to take some off?
That's a very good question. Because my setups that I look at have the potential to be very explosive, and uh, I will take a pretty big size with the intentions of taking off half pretty quickly. When I say pretty quickly, I don't necessarily say 5% or 10%.
Hmm.
Is if they get once again, it's technical. If they get to a level where they may be running into some resistance, I will just go ahead and bang out half, because I took probably a bigger size than I should in a normal trade, because the setup should work. And if it doesn't work, my stop is quick. In other words,
Yeah.
I'm the type of guy. that if I get into a trade, I'm anticipating this stock should do something, and if it doesn't, I usually bail pretty quick. I'm not one to sit around and wait. That's the initial trade. Once it gets going in my favor, yes, then I'll put in my stop prices and things like that. But I'm usually banging out half of it, pretty quick. That may be 3%, it may be 5%, and then that lets me let the rest of the half, keep working for me.
So then that rest of it, is that
Mhm.
a trailing stop, or is that a level that you get to? Is it a slowing of momentum when it's finally time to kill it and move on to the next thing? What's that trigger that happens for you?
You know what? That's a very good question also, and mine is more gut feeling because there's so many variables that goes into the market. So if the market is still going in my favor, the sector is still going in my favor, I will bet Dave. I will kind of just use a gut on that last 50%. I won't tell myself if it breaks the 10 period moving average, I'm getting out.
Hmm.
So that can definitely vary based upon what the market is telling me at the time. And I could, if the market looks like it's going to roll over, I could just bang it out. So
Yeah.
it's more of a gut. It's a more of a gut feeling on that last half.
And that's good because we saw a very processed version for stock selection and entry. It seems like you're very, I'm going to set all this in advance. I know what setup I'm looking for. I'm going to trade the setup. But then you allow that discretion on the back half to say, hey, this is what the market's going on. Because you're right, there's a lot of variables. The
Mhm.
that 10 period moving average may break down, but then you may look over and see that every other sector or every other competitor in that sector is running, and things like this. That's very hard to either program in or just set rules behind. So I like that. So
Yep.
listen, it's been great. One thing I want to give people on the way out is just, do you have any closing thoughts or tips? So the idea is that we're showing the people behind the product, right? So then at the end of the day, it's the product. So I just bought Trade Ideas and I'm on this channel and I'm listening to Andy talk about, how he's been using it for many, many years and this is the style he uses it for. If you were to leave that person with just kind of one tip on how to get started and how to make their trading career a little bit easier in that beginning, what do you think you'd tell someone like that?
Well, I think find a niche that works for you that you're comfortable with, and that's the important thing.
Hmm.
I see so many traders coming in and they're all over the place. They're trying all these different styles and they're not comfortable with any of them. So
Yeah.
what you want to do, I finally found a style that I'm very comfortable with, and it works for me. And um, I think the sooner you face the fact that I have to feel comfortable with what I'm doing. Okay, if you're scared, it's not going to work. Okay, so feel comfortable, find a niche, and then stick to that niche. Don't be all over the place. Listening to chat rooms telling you to do this, do that. You need to find out what's going to work for you, and the quicker you can do that and focus on your style and your niche, you're going to be successful over time.
And it's funny because that is the answer that most successful traders I end up talking to.
Oh, really?
I've spoken to people who are they're shorting like penny stocks to on the way down, and then use more of this pattern swing trader, and Steve that's more of an indicator based swing trader, and all of these things. But it all just boils down to, it took me some time. I found this thing that I do, and I just continue to do that thing. So I think the whole
Mhm.
jack of all trades, master of none saying is really, really poignant for trading, where, if you're doing 80 million things, and we see it in support all the time, it's like I tried Forex trading and crypto trading and this and that and the other thing, and I'm trying to figure out what it is. I'm kind of with you that I don't think it truly matters what you land on at the end of it, whether it's indicators or price action or
Mhm.
swing trading or day trading. As long as it makes sense to you and it fits that niche, then I think it's just a matter of time and going over it, right? And I always like to use Brian
I agree.
Shannon as an example, who's a big Anchored VWAP guy, and I use Anchored VWAP a lot in my analysis as
Sure.
well now. I don't think it's the Anchored VWAP that gives him any kind of power. I think it's the fact that he's been looking at it and using it for so long. He's become kind of a master at that thing, so he's able to go, okay,
Exactly.
now it's, I know what this indicator is telling me. I know how to interpret that, and I know how to go from there. So, listen, Andy,
Absolutely.
thanks everyone for coming by. Again, if you want the cloud link that Andy's going to provide with his setup, that poise setup, it's going to be in the description below. If any social media you're seeing this on, you can't find it, always come to Trade Ideas. Click on the little help button and we'll get that for you as well. If you've made it, a half hour in to this interview, I think we've deserved a like. So if you can hit a like or a retweet or a heart or whatever it is on social media nowadays, that helps the algo. Give us feedback on what you think of this meat trade ideas. Is there anyone in particular you want me to bring on? That would be fantastic as well. So I know it's Friday, Andy, and I'm looking at the market over here and it's really slow. So you're probably trying to look to do something else. Thank you for coming by. Have a good
Hey,
one.
you're welcome, Michael. Enjoyed it, man. Have a good one. Bye bye.